Welcome to If You Can, a podcast dedicated to risk takers, dream chasers, and those who are at the summit of their success and are willing to share their advice with those of us who are still on our journey up from base camp. Over the first 10 weeks of this show, I've interviewed my first 10 guests, and what a journey it's been already. From doctors to business CEOs, from fighter jet pilots to professional bodybuilders, from America's Got Talent winning ventriloquists to actors, all the way to the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Lennox Lewis. These first 10 episodes have reinforced my belief and my mission for this show. And that mission is we all have the ability to learn from anyone, regardless of background and industry. It's not about what you do or where, but I believe it's about how you do it and the lessons and the values you've gained in the process. In fact, as an adventurer, I feel my responsibility is to step outside of this adventure space and speak to people from all walks of life in order to grow personally and to also understand the world to a stronger and deeper level. This first solo episode is going to be broken down into two parts. Number one, I'm going to do a quick Q&A with questions from my producer and also some questions that have been sent in on Instagram stories. These are questions about my adventures, world records, talks, my dreams for this podcast show and beyond. And part two, we're going to do a quick recap of my first guests and the greatest 5 lessons I've learned so far. So, shall we get started for my first ever solo episode? My name is Louis Alexander. Welcome to If You Can. Question 1. What is a professional adventurer and is it a real job? This is an interesting question. This is a question which I really struggled to answer back in 2022 when I started. It's been 4.5 years since I started this career. So yes, I do think it is a real job. The reason I struggled with it before was because I, in many ways, was trying to work it out. I didn't know actually how to define it. Now I would say a professional adventurer is someone who makes a career and makes a living from adventures and everything around it. So we can look up to the likes of Bear Grylls and Steve Backshall. They've made careers from going on expeditions and writing books, TV shows about it, going on speaking tours. Over the first 4.5 years of my career, I've focused on sponsorship and giving talks. And that's how I've made it a career so far. So yes, it is a real job. Is it easy? No. Is it difficult? Yes, sometimes, like all jobs are, but I deeply enjoy it. Question 2, when and why did you start this podcast? So we started this show officially in January of this year, 2026, but the idea was actually born back in 2025. And after 12 months of going out and pitching and trying to meet the right people, I finally did. I found the right sponsor for the show too, in Bob, and we launched it this year. And the reason for the show was I was very aware in the first few years of my career that the adventure space is very small. And to become the person I want to and to achieve what I want to achieve as an adventurer, I needed to meet people from all different communities. And I understood very early on that actually some of the greatest advice I've been given is from people who've never embarked on a marathon or an expedition. Instead, they're a business CEO, maybe they're a musician or an actor. And actually, the values they've learned are ultimately what we need in the adventure world too. So many reasons the way I wanted to start this show was to share that with the audience, to learn out loud with people too, and to give a platform to these incredible positive role models and pioneers, some who are well known, some who are more silent heroes, and to learn out loud with the audience. That's why I started. Number 3, how difficult is it finding sponsorship? This is without doubt the most common question I get, whether it's in my emails or on Instagram from young and aspiring adventurers, and I love receiving that message or that email because it's the exact same message I sent about 4.5 years ago. Is it difficult? The short answer, yes. The long answer is it is the hardest part of this journey. To believe in your dreams so much that others are willing to invest and believe too, and financially invest is an ultimate challenge. And the short answer is you have to knock on thousands of doors. Last year alone, I sent over 3,500 cold emails. You have to be willing to persevere and battle those rejections because there will be a lot of them, whether that's people who actually say no to your face or on the phone, or in today's modern world, they don't even answer your email. But it's worth it. And the hope is, in the first few years of my career, I've been very lucky to have a few full-time sponsors. I've currently got 2 full-time sponsors who I'm very proud to represent. And to find that support where you can go off and achieve your dream is incredible. So I owe a lot to Cinnamon Care Collection, who are my headline sponsor for this year, and also to a new sponsor who I don't think has been announced just yet, but will be coming out in the next few weeks. And of course, I'm lucky to have Bob as well as part of the sponsorship for this show. They're our founding sponsor. And the truth is they invested in us and believed in us before we'd even filmed the pilot. So the hard part is selling your why. The what, the how, and everything comes after that. And Bob very kindly believed in our why. Question 4, what's your proudest moment so far? There's been some great highlights. I think when it comes down to the adventures themselves and maybe some of the commercial opportunities, such as achieving my first few Guinness World Records, being featured by National Geographic as the Adventure of the Month, being in the Times for the first time and named as the modern day Byron, those are quite the surface level things. But the one I'm probably most proud of is when I first started my career in 2022, when I was 22 years old and I ran 17 marathons in 17 consecutive days in honor of the 17 years my granddad lived with dementia. And the first 9 days were smooth, were great. I had hundreds of members from the public come and join me. And then on day 10, I woke up with shin splints, a chest infection, and a fever. Now that day 10, deciding to get out of bed and push and persevere through the pain was ultimately the biggest tipping point in my life. I look back now and can see that day 10 could have started and ended my career. And I'm very proud that I persevered through. I'm very proud of the team I had with me too, who made it possible. That's probably my proudest moment in the last 4 years. Question 5, do you enjoy running? Short answer, no. I have a love-hate relationship with running. It's provided me with some of my most incredible moments in life, like running through the Amazon, experiencing Antarctica, but it's also given me some of my most difficult and painful moments too. But I've learned a lot about discipline and sacrifice. The truth is you can't shortcut running. You have to be willing to do the training and turn up every day in order to get to the finish line on your big expedition or event day, whatever you want to call it. So do I actually enjoy the movement of running? No. Do I enjoy the person I become because of it? Yes. Question 6, what's your favorite country to visit? Now this can become a controversial question because everyone has a different favorite country. From all my expeditions, I look back, especially on the Running the Seven Continents project. That was my first big international project where I got to visit lots of the places I dreamed of as a child. And one that really stood out to me was the Arctic Circle and visiting northern Norway. And I got to run through the fjords there in winter. It was absolutely incredible. It was just below sub-zero. I had an incredible local support crew with me who were just so kind. In fact, they did the whole thing for pro bono because they believed in me and the charity and everything we were doing. They were so kind. And I remember running through the fjords with the frozen lake next to me, these snow sort of peaked mountains. It was just incredible. And I think more recently, a country I've really loved is Singapore. I've been out there 3 times in the last 12 months for my talks. They've also welcomed me in and have that real adventure spirit. And I've spoken to probably over 5,000 people out there now, which has been a real privilege. Question 7, what are your plans for this show? In short, I want to learn. I want to learn from a variety of people who are at the peak of their success. I hope to share those lessons with those who listen with me and our audience. I would love to interview some incredible pioneers and role models who I look up to and admire. And actually, when I started the show, I wrote this short list of my dream guests. So far, I've had one come on, which is Lennox Lewis. And my long-term dream is over the next few years is to interview all 25 of them. But the ultimate mission is to deliver great guests with great lessons and to help all of us. And I just want to continue enjoying this journey because I've actually really enjoyed it. It's been tough too at times. It's a new skill for me. And I hopefully can share that impact with those listening too. Question 8, which leads on perfectly from that actually, is who are your dream guests? Now, I don't want to give them all away, but in the adventure space, I think it's pretty clear who I look up to. I would love to invite Bear Grylls, Ben Fogle, Steve Backshall, Helen Skelton. Those are some of my heroes from my childhood and still heroes today. I also have a few people I look up to in the world of music, in the world of entertainment, which I find fascinating because I think in that world you experience so much rejection, and that's something I can resonate with sponsorship and this adventure space, but also somewhere I can have the ability to learn more. And there's also some athletes, there's also some silent heroes and those behind the scenes who may not be public figures who absolutely deserve the space to sit here and to share their journey, to share their lessons. And some of the guests we've had on, in the sense of Dr. Giles Davies, an incredible cancer surgeon who's delivered over 3,500 successful operations. He'd never done a podcast before, but he was absolutely incredible. And some of the best feedback we've had was from that episode. So there's lots of dream guests, and with time, we're going to make them possible. Question 9, is it difficult to interview people? It's been a totally new skill for me, learning how to interview people. I've interviewed 11 people now. All 11 have been on camera. The first one was a pilot, and the other 10 you can see here on our channel, on our Spotify, on our YouTube, or on our Apple Podcasts. It's a very new skill for me. Over the last 4 years, with doing the press for my adventures, and whether that's before or after coming home from a challenge, I've learned how to be a guest on some interviews, whether it's on a radio channel or in a TV piece, or maybe doing a piece for a newspaper. But being on the other side is very, very different. It's very challenging. And in many ways, you have the control of the conversation even more so. But what I'm very conscious of is being an interviewer that I would like to sit down with, because I've been able to go on some podcasts where I've absolutely loved the interviewers' respect, the kindness, their curiosity, but also the amount of time they've put into doing their research, to understanding their world. And that's something I want to do, and that's the host and the podcast host I want to be, someone who allows people to open up to a level they feel comfortable to, but also to share what they believe delivers their best potential. So is it difficult? Yes. Am I learning? I hope so. Do I think I'll need to get better? Yes, absolutely. Question 10, final question. What's the next challenge, and are you back in training yet? Another very popular question. Am I back in training? I actually returned to training 3 weeks ago, to some gentle training with my new PT, Callum, and I'm going to be entering training camp in the next couple months. Now, there's only one reason you enter training camp, and that is because there is a new adventure, a new challenge, in this case, a new world record coming. And what I will say is it's going to be in the water again, but I won't give too much away. But it's very exciting. It's going to be my toughest challenge yet, and it actually is this time. And I really look forward to sharing the news very, very soon. Now, for part 2 of this episode, I want to take a moment to pause and stop after our first 10 guests and episodes, and to reflect on a few of my favourite moments and my favourite lessons too. And for number 1 is Mike Brennan. Mike is a very interesting person. He is actually one of my mentors, but he's one of my youngest mentors, and he's someone I look up to in many ways. He's now on his 3rd successful startup and business. The 3rd one is Bob, which is conveniently located just to my left here. They are a refillable body wash for men, which is good for your skin, it's good for the planet, it's not got any nasty ingredients. It's built for travel too, which is how I first met them as an adventurer. I'm often just traveling with hand luggage, and they are TSA approved, which means you can fly through security. And they very kindly supported me out in Australia when I was out there in September, when I ran the 8 marathons in 8 days or less across the capital cities. And they were incredible. And those who have worked with sponsors or brands will know how important it is to find a product or a company or people that you actually believe in, that you can actually talk about and represent with good faith. And that is the partnership I have with Bob. I actually use the product every day. I've used it for over 6 months now. What's quite funny is all of our guests who have come on the show have been handed a Bob. So it's quite funny to think that Bobs are around all their homes around the country or wherever they may be. And they very kindly supported and believed in this show. And actually the reality is, without them, this show would have never started, and it would have taken potentially years before I did. So I think we should watch Mike's clip now, which is a reflection on the need to fail to succeed in the long run, and how we can reflect and learn from our previous moments. Let's get started.
Failure to succeed is really, really important. And if you look at San Francisco tech systems and Y Combinator, they don't take on founders that haven't failed at least twice, because there's so many learnings in that journey. And I think I was very, very naive in my early years of Tutu, of banging on the same doors, trying to do the same things and it not working. And it took me probably 2 or 3 years into that journey to go, stop. What's the other ways to do this? How else can we grow this business? How else can we raise investment? How else can we look after our customers? And when you start to think like that and go, well, what didn't work previously? Or that, why? And you start to question everything. You start to realize that data and insights and trends are really, really valuable and important and shouldn't be ignored. And then you start to go, well, okay, these 3 things didn't work. Don't do it in that way again. Let's try these 2. And those building blocks become. So I think 10 years of amazing experience, amazing people around me, but a lot of, 15 to 20 hour days. I would get up in 5 in the morning and go to bed at 3 the next day. And it's absolutely the wrong way to grow a business. But when you're 21 to 30, you have that kind of energy to do it. Whereas at 35, even now, I don't have as much energy I can do that for 2 days of the week and then I'm shattered for the rest of it. So
I love Mike. I think he reflects so honestly on what he's done, but he also has that ability to talk about both success and failure as if they're real and as if it's okay to talk about both. There's 2 reasons actually I picked this out as one of the clips of my favorite lessons. The first one was because although I've been lucky to succeed on all of my marathon runs and swims around the world, the truth is I've made a lot of mistakes over the last few years behind the scenes, whether that's everything from logistics to marketing, from PR to learning how to lead and run a team for the first time. I've made a lot of mistakes, and this was a reminder to me that actually I need to reflect on those mistakes. The way to improve is to grow from them. And the second reason was he talks about data, and that's something I haven't really yet done when it comes to my expeditions. I do in my planning and my research go through everything from the weather to wildlife to the dangers with everything in between. But what I don't do often is reflect on that data. I'm often straight onto the next project. I've learned early on in my career that you're only as big as your next challenge, not your last challenge, so you always have to be working a few challenges ahead. But this has been a strong reminder for me to reflect on my previous challenges, and not just the good moments, but also some of the times I've potentially made a mistake and can learn from. The second lesson I've picked out comes from the world's most famous ventriloquist, America's Got Talent winning Paul Zerdin, which was an incredible conversation. Paul talks about risk and also about the ability to trust your gut. Let's take a look.
I think the biggest thing I have learnt is always go with your gut. Your gut is always right. And when I've gone against my gut and people have said, no, this is why I'm the manager, I know what I'm doing, trust me. And you go, oh, okay, well, you're a new manager, I better trust you. And and they suggest something or you get offered something and I go, oh, I don't know if that's for me. And this has happened to me a number of times. And every time I've gone against my gut, it's been a bad decision. So always go with your gut. 100% is always right.
I mean, Paul epitomizes taking a big risk and a big leap, which we discuss often in this show. And I think it's one thing to take a risk and a leap like maybe I did at 22 years old when I naively announced to the world I was going to become a professional adventurer. But Paul taking a risk when he was already a successful UK-based ventriloquist. He'd performed for the royal family at the Royal Variety, then taken the leap to go across the pond to the US. That is a totally different risk because when I took mine, I had nothing to lose. He, in this sense, had everything to lose, and I admire him so many reasons, but especially for that ability to take that leap, which obviously paid off. He ended up winning the show. And I think his advice here about trusting you guys is so important. We live in a world now where there are so many other opinions thrown at us, whether it's people in our lives personally or whether it's now on social media. We're often up for criticism, whether it's good or bad. But Paul discusses here that actually it's our gut which often is the most reliable. And in my world where I'm slowly beginning to build my team around me, both commercially and with everything, I'm very aware that I can't do it on my own. I need a team around me, but I'm also trying to understand and learn that I'm the one who knows what I want to do best. I'm the one who knows my ability and my strengths best too, and I'm the one who ultimately has to make that decision for what is the next chapter, what is the next challenge, because when things get tough, which they always do, if someone else made that decision, as Paul mentioned here, we're going to put the blame on them. Instead, we need to take that personal responsibility and, in this sense, trust your gut. So thank you, Paul, again for coming on the show. My third favourite lesson is from the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Olympic gold medalist, Lennox Lewis. This was, of course, an absolute honour to interview Lennox. I think we surprised quite a few people by having him on as our 8th ever guest, I believe, which worked out quite well because he obviously famously knocked out Mike Tyson in the 8th round. So maybe we did plan that well. And I really was keen to ask him a question about invincibility. as someone who puts myself in quite dangerous positions, sometimes running in jungles or swimming through the Arabian Sea or the North Sea, whatever it may be, I don't think that compares to stepping into a ring with someone and going to war against each other, especially people who are trained and professional at what they do. And Lennox famously has fought some of the most feared men in the world and beat them. And I wanted to ask him a question about invincibility and how that potentially impacts your ego and that contrast against confidence. So let's take a look.
I think we all go through it, and I've been through it where, I've been knocking guys out and everybody I want to knock out. So it's like I had that search and destroy kind of attitude when that's the wrong attitude that I had. I forgot about defense. I overcompensated and got caught. And it's a wake-up call. It's like a wake-up call, like, yo, man, I made a mistake. That mistake will never happen again. It's like jumping on a horse. You fall off a horse. Do you get back on the horse? Yes, you do get it back on the horse. And you have to make sure you hold on tighter and you don't get thrown off this time. So that was mine, because I did think I was invincible. I thought I could knock out everybody, but it's not all about that. You still got to be cautious when you're going out there. And I wasn't as cautious as I should have been.
I mean, absolute legend. First of all, I think it's so interesting. He spoke about that search and destroy attitude, and then he compared it to forgetting about his defense. And I think in my world, and hopefully this can apply to anyone's world, whether you're a teacher or you're a student, maybe you're an up-and-coming actor, maybe you're an up-and-coming doctor, whatever it may be. And for me, in my world as an adventurer, is that attack mode is going off and achieving success on an expedition, successfully crossing that finish line, earning a new world record. And then for me, in my world, the defense would be safety, returning home. It's just as important as succeeding. And I think I learned a lot from Lennox in many ways on that ability to process our emotions, even when things are going well, to protect ourselves at time too, knowing that sometimes things will go wrong. Like when he was famously stopped and shocked a lot of people, but then he came back and avenged that loss. And it was an incredible conversation. Thank you again, Lennox, for joining us on If You Can. The fourth moment I've chose was from Jordan Wiley, MBE, Jordan Wiley MBE, I should say. Jordan was actually one of the first adventurers I ever met and sat down with. He was one of the very first adventurers I ever reached out to and asked for advice when I first went full-time. And if I remember correctly, he was the first to say yes. I went to visit him in his local town and we had a coffee at a nearby cafe, and he was incredible. He was so kind, he was so generous. So when it came to starting this show and knowing that I did want to welcome on a few adventurers, he was the first I asked. And I was really grateful to have him come on. And of course, the question I had to ask Jordan was very similar to what I asked him 4 years ago at that cafe, but in the hope that he can now share that advice with others who were at that stage where I was 4 years ago. And that's on how to get people to invest in your dreams, whether that's financially as a sponsor, someone who joins your team, whatever it may be, and how to essentially, at the end of it, turn your passion into profession. So let's take a listen to Jordan.
You almost have to be obsessive with, if you've got a goal or a dream, you've got to be relentless in pursuit of that, because the world will try and pull you away from that every opportunity. And I think that's why belief in yourself is the most important thing, because if you don't believe in yourself, and you're not backing yourself, how can you convince the rest of the world? All those sponsors, those donors, those lovely people who want to support you, they will see that, so you've got to back yourself 100%. But I truly believe, I don't think it's cliched, that if you've got a dream and a goal, you can absolutely achieve it. I don't care what it is, but I'm not saying it's going to be easy. There's going to be big decisions you have to make. There's going to be sacrifices, choices. There's going to be setback. There's going to be failures. But that's all right. That's all part of the process. You've got to lean into those failures and those setbacks, because you wouldn't have, if I turned around every time somebody said no or that can't happen, I wouldn't have even got started in the first place. So I got this sort of model that I've come across. It's not mine. I can't claim it. But in the middle of this, imagine 3 circles. And where those 3 circles overlap, bang in the bullseye in the center, is what is purpose. And for me, it's the dream. And those 3 circles are, what are you good at and what do you enjoy? Is it going to make the world a better place? And the third one is, can you make a living or get paid for it? And I think if you can find that overlap of what you love, does it make the world better, and can it pay you a wage of some sort? That is the jackpot in life for me.
It absolutely is a dream. And Jordan and I have both turn that into reality. He's far more achieved than I am in my career, but in the last 4 years, I'm very proud of what I've achieved too. The thing that first struck me when I met Jordan, and again was reminded when he joined us on the show, was how much respect he has for those who do invest and believe in him, such as a sponsor. And I think it's very easy in the world of working with brands and sponsors to know the price of things. But Jordan reminds us of the value of that too, where a company's worked really hard, or an individual, whoever it is, and if they're willing to put their time, their energy, their money into you, that's incredibly valuable. And it's worth its weight in gold. And his triangle equation with how to turn, your passion into profession and needing to tick all three of those things off, it makes sense. We need to be able to do things we're good at, things we enjoy doing, but also have the ability to make money. And I think Jordan is a great role model for all of us. He's always will be one of my role models, and was very happy to have him on the show. The fifth moment is from Mandy Hickson, former RAF fighter jet pilot and famously the first woman to fly the Tornado on the front line. I read Mandy's book a few years ago during the second lockdown, I believe, and I was so in awe of what she's achieved. She's a true pioneer, a risk taker. She's pushed against all those boundaries and barriers that have been placed in front of us and just knocked them down. And I think it's an inspiration for all of us, regardless of gender and age and everything like that. And her episode was incredible. In fact, me and the production team behind the camera were in awe again of how much she's achieved, but her ability to turn those moments of fear, such as being shot at whilst flying over a war zone, the moments of excitement and success, and turn them into real lessons. It's a real skill, and it's one that she's obviously very successful and is a motivational speaker too, and I was very, very impressed. And the question I wanted to ask her most out of everything was, in the world of military, where there is so much training and they have drills for everything, is there a way as civilians, as those who've never stepped into the military, to embrace that that motto and that structure into our lives, where we can place our own drills into our professional life, our personal life, whatever it may be, to stay calm, to stay present? And this was Mandy's answer.
We always say train hard, fight easy, and that's exactly what we do. So if you sit there in your comfort zone for the whole of your life, when something happens, you won't be able to cope with it, I can guarantee, because you've never experienced it. But if you push yourself a little bit and you learn to experience things that are maybe a little bit more risky, then ultimately, when they happen, it doesn't feel as hard as it would do. It could be that preparation really helps you for that. So you've got a really big presentation coming up, not you personally, but whoever has a big presentation coming up, and they think, oh, I should practice it, and they'll do it once or twice. No, I can suggest you do it 20 times, because you know what you want to do is you don't want to say, oh, we rise to the occasion. Absolutely not. You want to be able to default to your training so that the occasion rises to where you are, because adrenaline will push you. So if you're sort of working at an 80%, and you go into that room to do your presentation, that 20% will be consumed with adrenaline. But if you have got it to the point where you know exactly what you're saying, you know how slick it is, you've anticipated questions that are going to come up, you've gone through all permutations, you're now at a 60. So your adrenaline is only taking to 80. So I've now got capacity to cope.
I mean, I'd never thought about it in that way ever. I've always believed in the last 4 years I've done of public speaking that adrenaline and the energy from the audience and from the room is what would then bring me to that next level. But as Mandy explains here, actually, it's the opposite. It's actually the moment needs to rise to us. And if we always are perfectly prepared, as much as we can be, and trained and ready, and whatever our space may be, then actually we can be ready for any moment, and we can leave room, as Mandy said there, for adrenaline or for different emotions, which again are going to be out of our control. So I've only done 2 or 3 talks since Mandy came onto the show, and already I've tried to embrace that. So Mandy and all these guests epitomise why I started this show. But before we wrap up, I'd like to say a big thank you for staying until the end of this episode. We'll likely do another one of these, so I'd love your questions for the next one. You can contact the show anytime by emailing me at louis@ifyoucanhq.com. And please do consider subscribing, following, or leaving a comment wherever you're listening or watching. And I want to say a final huge thanks to all of our guests so far. This show has been the ultimate privilege so far, and long may it continue. Until next time, thank you for watching If You Can. Thank you everyone for tuning into this week's episode of If You Can. For my very first solo episode, please do drop a comment below if it's something you'd like to see more of. But of course, it is now time for Bob's Everyday Hero, our weekly segment to finish the show, where we give a shout out and a thank you and a big well done to one of you, to one of our If You Can listeners who's achieved something great, big or small, a moment of kindness, a personal goal, a work goal. It could be anything. You can nominate yourself, a friend, a family member, a colleague. You just have to drop us an email at louis@ifyoucanhq.com to be nominated. And each week we go through the emails, pick out one of the stories and send out a Bob Shower Pack to support you on your own journey. And this week's email comes from Sam, and I'm going to read their email to you now. Hi Louis, I needed this episode. I'm 27 in a stable job, but I know it's not what I actually want. I've got a business idea I keep thinking about, but I just haven't had the guts to properly go for it yet. What Chris said about having a dream as a North Star hits me. I think I've been waiting for the day I feel ready, but I'm realizing that day will probably never come, so I just have to do it. Also, the bid on rejection, I've been taking it personally, but I'm starting to see it's just part of the process. I haven't quit or anything, but I've started working on my business idea in the evenings this week, which is a start. I appreciate the show, mate. It genuinely helps. Cheers, Sam. Well, Sam, thank you, first of all, for the kind email, the kind words. I'm so glad it's helping others too, because it's certainly helping me. You're right. There is never a perfect moment. Sometimes the perfect moment is now. And I think back to when I took that leap at 22, 4 years ago, to become one of the youngest professional adventurers in the world. Many doubted it. Many said it was never going to work. How can you do that in the 21st century? And actually, the truth is, it wasn't the perfect time in my life either. But I decided to go for it. And I'll tell you what, those rejections, there were thousands of them. But every rejection gets you closer to that next yes. And trust me, when you do, it is 100% worth it. So Sam, you're right. Make that start. Go for it. Believe in yourself. Be so enthusiastic that others join you on that journey too. And I have no doubt it will work out. And we'll send you out a Bob Shower Pack to support you on that journey too. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you to Sam for sending an email. Please do continue supporting us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube. We're also on Instagram and TikTok. And we'll see you next week for the next episode of If You Can. Bye now.